and you went up there and spoke and you weren't prepared. You just said that you wanted to be home before you were 40. And he sentenced you to 144 years, and you kind of started to panic, and then your public defender tapped you on the shoulder and was like, you're fine, you got what you asked for, and that they suspended all but 19, and that you would do 19 years.
Yeah.
But then obviously we did speak about the fact that, okay, yes, while you did 19 years, that remaining 121 years never goes away. It's always held. It's suspended indefinitely. So obviously that's something to consider as well. And I think that's something that maybe even during the edits, I think that we should expand on when we talk about long-term impacts. Whilst, you know, people will say, okay, well, you didn't have to do the full 144, but you almost have to be this picture of perfection.
Right.
When the world is working against you, because that 144 is constantly held over your head.
Right.
So I'm going to go into our...
What's going on? That's my buddy right there.
I'm going to go into our initial... Remember the plan sheet?
Yeah.
And make sure that we're tracking where we need to be. Because I know that we did outlines.
Somebody asked, meanwhile, did I see any Samoans in prison? Maybe like one where I was at, but I was on the East Coast too. I'm sure out west there's more of a Samoan population in prison. Yeah. I'm excited, Kirsten. Oh, 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 oh. Was you going to the whole, or was going to the whole peaceful or a bad thing? Well, it became peaceful to me, which is a bad thing, which we'll talk about in the book, I'm sure. We're getting ready to get it more into right now. But yeah, that was my escape, my vacation in there, if that made sense after a while. Now I'm awake. I got that coffee now. Ooh. What prison was I in? I was in Commonwealth of Virginia, so I was in quite a few. Sussex, Greensville, St. Bride's, Nottoway Work Center, Haynesville Work Center. I feel like I'm missing something. But I made like quite a tour from level 4 down. Level 4 down to a 2, back to a level 4, back down to a 1. All right. And what we're doing, so I'm with my buddy Kirsten, who's also an advocate, but also somebody I'm working with. She's helping me, or not, well, she's writing the book, and I'm just telling the story. So we're coming together to get the story out there more in a more in-depth way. So I'm grateful for that, because a lot of people have been asking for the book and want answers. And everybody, if you can, like the live, tap the screen, share the live. And remember, this is a safe space for people that are impacted by incarceration, mental health, substance abuse, and more. So glad to see y'all up here this morning.
Okay. So if we go from...
Did I go to trial? No. We just...
Chapter 5, so did you want to talk more about the separate incident?
Which one? As far as that night? I mean, me and my...
on chapter 5, you had co-defendants, your cousin being in a separate incident, and how you became implicated as a result of that separate incident that wasn't to do with you. Because we haven't touched on that, but you had it written as a point that
Yeah,
you wanted to talk about.
it was set. Yeah, we could talk about it, or I can like kind of break that down.
Yeah, can we pop it in maybe chapter 5? Because obviously that's before court, right?
Yeah, so because it was a couple. So him and his two friends, my other co-defendants or whatever, they were doing some things here and there. They were doing some robberies and stuff. But the final straw, the one that where my cousin got took out, I had spoke about when the detectives came with the picture of him. He had got hogtied from the place that he had tried to run.
Right. Yeah.
But what happened was, essentially, as far as me being implicated, it wasn't just in one additional robbery. They tried to implicate me in 3 additional robberies, as well as, well, I can speak about it now. Somebody being unalive, and the unalive thing, the detectives immediately they didn't even. They were like, no, that's some far fetched shit. We're not even, which they knew, you know. But the robberies was a different thing because whether my family knows, people that are closest to me, I ended up being sentenced with more than one incident. But the truth of the matter is, I was only present at one. When I turned down the opportunity to agree or to testify, and my cousin and co-defendant started to basically testify and tell on each other, tell on everything, they were not just telling on things that were true, they were trying to get things off of them, you know, throwing it onto me, throwing it onto my cousin. Everybody was. At one point, they were trying to implicate me as somebody that actually went into the establishments or places with them. Not just the night that I was present, but again, on 2 other occasions where I wasn't. And that was it. It was just when the smoke cleared and me going in front of the judge to plea, I did have to plead to an additional robbery. And there was nothing to stand on. There was no defense for me because I didn't agree. And I had got bunched in with my co-defendants. And I just remember, like, not only that, I always talk to, I think this is important. Like, when you pull up my name in the news, if it even comes up, but I remember, like, back then, like, reading the newspaper, even though and it wasn't just me, there was one other individual too that he was a co-defendant separate. I wasn't involved in anything, he wasn't, but he was involved with them separate, if that makes sense. He ended up only getting 5 years for this whole thing. But when you read the newspaper article, it sounds like we were like this, like, gang that was just running around terrorizing multiple cities. And even though I was only there for one crime, when your name is bunched in with guys that were public society, everybody, I don't care. That's so important how your name is out there, how certain things are narrated, especially when it comes to the media and stuff. And that was just, I don't know, all of that was going on. I remember telling my lawyer, I remember telling my lawyer, and I think about this, like literally sitting across from him and telling him the God's honest truth. Because when I first, and I know this, when a lot of kids first talk to their lawyers, if they did something, there's a part of them that's still scared to tell their lawyer the truth. There's a certain, especially if it's a public defender. But there had came to a point where I was telling my lawyer exactly what happened, where I was at. I wasn't here, da da da. And he was essentially almost, I don't want to say laughing me off, but he was so nonchalant about it that he was not trying to be proactive in making sure that my name was cleared out of these other incidents. When I went into that courtroom to plead in front of the judge, and I don't know if we mentioned this in the sentencing, the sentences was, or I did mention I didn't go in front of a jury, because if I went in front of a jury, I wouldn't be able to get back in court or appeal the time as fast. I had to plead in front of the judge. When I pled in front of the judge, I pled out to 2 robberies, 2 gun charges, and a conspiracy. That was the that was the only part of the or only thing that was offered to me. If I pled to these charges, they would drop the rest of them. So I took another robbery charge because if I didn't say, okay, I'll just plead to these two, they were going to hit me with all 6.
So were the 2 gun charges one for each incident, or were the 2 gun charges from one incident?
One for each, and they deemed it as one for each incident.
Right.
And they noted me as the driver for both incidences.
And the conspiracy was one single conspiracy or 2 conspiracy charges?
They just gave me 1 conspiracy charge and
Okay.
and 2 robbery charges at the end of it. The original was 6 robberies, 6 conspiracies, 6 gun charges. But if I pled,
Sorry to cut you off.
no, you're good.
How much did each carry?
So each robbery was 5 to life. Conspiracy was 10 years, automatic, and then the gun charges. First one's mandatory 3, second one's mandatory 5.
So if you had, because I think this is important, so if it was based on what you actually were present for, you would have got 1 5 to life, the 10, and 3.
Yes, yes, without a doubt. I always tell people I would have ended up with time, but
Right. But maybe 18 years
I probably would have.
in total.
Yeah, like in total. If I had a paid attorney who didn't just, I'm not gonna yeah, I'm not trying to dog this guy because there's some good points. I mean, I didn't end up with a life sentence, but there was a point where he wasn't even trying to hear what I was saying. He was like, well, this is all they're gonna do. You can plead to this, or we can go out there and you can roll the dice on the 6 robberies. And literally at that point, what can you do? What do you do as a 19?
Right.
And
they probably gave you more on the robbery charges because there was 2.
Not only,
And then you got obviously the 5 on the second gun because it was 3 and then 5. So would you have, you think, if it was just the single robbery charge, would it have been closer to 5?
I think,
rather than so extensive.
The judge literally said that his wording and paraphrasing, but that I was part of a criminal organization. So when you're saying that now that I'm 41, it lets me know that you did believe that I was committing. You probably believe that I was committing multiple with them, and being that I refused to testify, my word is no longer good. It wouldn't have mattered at that point.
And even though you dropped the 6, they dropped the 6, I would probably not hesitate to suggest that still played a factor in his judicial sentence decision making.
He told me I was a menace to society, and he said that I deserved to be gone forever, but he was willing to give me a second chance and allow me to come home before I was 40. And
how much time did these co-defendants get?
Well, they ended up getting charged for multiple crimes outside of the ones that I was, the one that I was involved in and the other co-defendant and the ones that I was convicted of. So they also had charges in multiple states. But my cousin, when he got hit for that last robbery where the detectives came in the house and they had got him, that was the final straw on him. He ended up getting 93 years to do. So essentially not coming home. My other 2 co-defendants, they one of them had 28 years for Virginia. Then he's got to go to North Carolina. I don't know how much time in NC. And one of them's got had 30 some years, and then's got time, in Florida or North Carolina as well. And then our other, like I said, the only other guy that was mentioned in the case, he got 5 years. One guy, because they looked at him as a driver in one of them as well.
So do you think that possibly, and have you asked to request the case documents of the testimonies that were given?
Oh yeah, I got them. Yeah.
Can you send them to me?
If I can, yeah, I can see if I can, dig them back up. Motion of discovery.
Yeah.
What else? That's in
I
my.
just think some of that, you know how we talked about having some pictures of you and stuff to kind
Yeah.
of broaden that. I think even some redacted versions of those would be helpful.
Yeah, because there's a part in there I would love. While you're saying that, I would love to include like the part where they found the bag. I would like to include the part where basically the judge said because I didn't accept the opportunity to go home, he was gonna make sure I didn't. There's certain look because
Judge's remarks would be really powerful to have at the end of that chapter. So I'm just going to put in little notes.
not just the
Case
most.
documents.
Yeah, cause not what's the court report, the stenographer, where they got to record everything that's said.
Said and done. Yeah. Yeah, just like the case transcript,
Yeah,
like court transcripts,
yeah,
which will have like the judge's sentencing remarks and relevant case law, testimonies given, obviously testimonies that were given before you walked into the room, anything that was played to the judge, anything that was said to the judge. Like, did you hear the prosecutors? Were the prosecutors there, or was it just you?
Oh, the prosecutors was definitely there.
Did you hear him say anything, or
Yeah.
was that all done before you went in?
No. They definitely he I can't remember the specific order. I think I spoke last when I was just doing the accountability piece, but I mean the prosecutor. That's the only part that just like that's what I know a kid's going through today. Like I know a kid's gonna go through that same shit this morning. Like the prosecutor when he got up there, he just tried to paint me like I was this super vicious, like ultra criminal, you know.
Yeah.
And it all boiled down to, yeah, I made a decision to get in there and take that ride that one night, but what really again sent them over, I did not take the out. And it was just like, not only did I not take the out, everybody else allegedly did, or they tried to take the out. And it was just when I got up there, it was like he's the only one that didn't cooperate. Da-da-da. That was the tone towards me. And even though, and I had the most minute part in this thing, in a crime where nobody was even physically assaulted, he yeasted it up, you know.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to mark 6 as done. Obviously, we can come back to it at any point. So we have 6 as trial as well. So we had 5 as being about the incident, and then 6 being about your trial. So we've kind of covered those both in 5. So let's skip now to what was essentially was going to be chapter 7. Because we can bulk out 5 and 6 with those.
Yeah.
Once I get those documents. So let's go Haynesville receiving.
Haynesville receiving. Oh, can I mention one thing about when I came back from sentencing that day?
Yeah.
When I came back in sentencing, when I walked into the pod and guys were asking me how much time I got, they started cheering. They were happy that I got a second chance. And I don't know, that was was weird. I just wanted to include that. That was just a weird, because people won't understand this part. I got hit with 19 years, but I felt relief. I was highly upset, highly. I understood what was going on. I understood I got more time than I should have for, being implicated, not taken. But I was still okay because the judge told me, you can get back in court. I mean, not the judge, my lawyer told me I can get back in court, file a HABE or whatever. You're listening to guys say you're gonna be okay, but I was also being told like you're gonna be good by the old head. So I don't know. I just wanted to include. It was like it's like such. It's so twisted. Like when you think about like jail and prison culture, like you should be celebrating a guy has a second chance, but celebrating a young kid getting 19 years, happy that he's still gonna go home at like 40 is weird to me. But I get it though. I don't know how to really explain that, but I just wanted to include that. But yeah,
Do you feel like it was? Do you feel like it was almost like a bit of a reality shift? Like a change in mindset to go, okay, well, I'm no longer free, so what would have been a positive outcome for me as a person on the street, as a free person, is now very different as a person that's in prison. It's almost like your expectations of life and what is good and what is bad is different. Like these people cheering for you because you're going to lose 19 years of your life. But when you could have been looking at 144 years, it's kind of like your perception of value of life changed. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
do you feel like there was that shift happening?
yeah. It was a paradigm shift. It was there's these like mile markers that I look back in my journey, and finally getting sentenced marked the beginning. Now I could look up at the mountain and know what I had to climb. Now it was like I got my number. This is what it is. I was no longer waiting, trying to anticipate how much time I was gonna have, be sentenced to. And not for nothing, I was one of the guys now, because a lot of those guys were already ready to go down the road. I was in a max pod by then with the guys that had, violent offenses. Yeah, it was it was so crazy, man. I still remember that, like I'm like walking into the damn pod right now. But yeah, and then I was just trying to. The reason I want to mention that because I was just like trying to like play it off like I was happy to, or maybe I was relieved, but I was definitely crushed. But I was like I was just absorbed into the culture at that moment. It was almost like I accepted it. If I can't, yeah, it's like here we go.
Yeah, like a shift into, I don't know,
It's
prison life,
yeah, yeah.
inmate life.
Like you're not going home.
Mm.
You're not going
It
home.
was almost like before you were sentenced, it was kind of like you were just in limbo. You weren't really an inmate yet.
And a part
You
of
were just staying there.
and a part of me
Yeah.
was in denial still. Maybe a little piece of me was still holding on in hopes that everything was gonna be okay. As we were talking about the charges, I remember saying to myself, "There's no way I'm gonna get these additional charges. I wasn't there. I'm good. My lawyer's gonna figure it out." There's all these. I'm thinking I'm gonna get the youthful offenders program. There's. But once I got my number, it was just like, okay, yeah, it was just I don't know. It's sad, but that's what humans do. We adapt, and maybe that was the
I
initial.
mean, yeah, you had a place then, whereas before you were in prison, but you weren't an inmate because you were awaiting sentencing, but you weren't free. You didn't have a sentence yet. You had this hanging over your head. You didn't know what was going on. And so whilst you got 144 years with all but 19 suspended, you were clear again.
Yeah,
Like you knew what was coming. Like it was a sure thing. Everything had been unsure up to then.
yeah,
So it was almost like, okay, this is your stability. Whilst prison's not stable, you were stable again.
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
yeah, yep. Yeah, that's a perfect analogy. I think so.
yeah. Okay, so talk to me about Haynesville.
Okay, yeah. So Haynesville receiving is just like our processing, or which I know you know, but like I don't know how we would explain that in the book, but the place you go before you get sent to your actual destination or prison that you'll be staying at. So for me, Haynesville receiving was only 2 weeks. You stayed in the hole the whole time, essentially. I mean, you could come out, use the phone, take a shower, go to these rec cages or whatever. But it wasn't prison. On. You were kept at a separate what you call it, kept in like the hole in a separate place away from general population. And essentially, they just go over your paperwork. You meet with a counselor. You go to programs. You do all this good stuff. And what you call it? After that, they determine or dictate what prison you're gonna go to. So the only like big part of that moment that I remember is they had called all of us, everybody that I had came to reentry with. I mean, excuse me, classification with. And when I was there receiving, they had all of us kind of like standing in outside in the breezeway, and they were starting to give everybody their numbers, their levels that they were going to, and everybody was getting level one. They're, hey, you're going to level one, you're going to level two, you're going to all these low levels, and then they get to me, and I'm the only one out the group that's getting sent to a level four. And when the counselor said that, this is no BS. Those guys, we was all like talking, kicking the bobo, like, hey man, we getting ready to go down the road, da da da. When she said I was going to a level four, those guys literally physically started to distance themselves from me. And I remember, like, one of them was a dude that was at the jail with me. We was cool, you know what I'm saying? We worked together. But as soon as they said I was going to level four, it was like even people that was locked up with me was looking at me different. And then they were like, "Oh man, you going to a level four? You must got this amount of time." And I told people how much time I had, and it was like they was even more messed up because all of them that were with me, they were like they had like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you know, whatever it is. But yeah,
Do you think the level classification was purely based on your time, or did they do like risk assessments and stuff for you as well?
classification for prison was definitely done. It was definitely risk assessment based. It was based on how many fights I had got into in the jail, time on sentence type of charge. I'm sure they did whatever their own sort of evaluation, I don't know what they all did factored into it, which is maybe something I need to find out presently. But yeah, that was it. I had an issue, like I said, at the jail and with my hands. I was quick to fight, so I knew that was kind of following me down the road. But getting sent to a level four or higher, that's the big boys right there. It's a little different right there. You going to prison. So even with the fights, the fist fights, I just want to note, like, I don't think I should have got sent to a level four. But then again, I had robbery, robbery charge, or got hit with two, and a weapon charge. So I get it. Yeah.
What, like, obviously, for those who are watching and don't know me, I have a husband who is incarcerated. And when I met him, he was at a level 5.
Yeah.
And so my husband has similar charges to you. Violent, yes. But when we talk about a level 4 and a level 5, I mean, I don't know whether it's nationwide or globally, but especially in Virginia, level 4s and level 5s are pretty harsh. And I remember when I first was speaking to my husband, you know, like they were having 17-year-old boys come up into those level 4s and 5s.
Oh yeah.
And because they got into fights in jail, they were coming in for like petty theft into level 4s because they got in so many fights in jail, and their risk put them at a level 4. And they're in with people that I'm talking are never going home.
Yeah. Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
So when I got sent to a level 4, and I know you're gonna walk it back so we can but I just want to add this piece. They were sending guys that were getting dirty urines straight to a level 4 at this time. So that meant if you were somebody that had 4 months left on your prison sentence, you only had a year to do, and you were in there for a driving charge. If you smoked, a joint or whatever on the yard and popped dirty, they sent you to a level 4. And I know we're gonna get into it, but 2 guys that didn't make it, that didn't survive being up there, both had less than a year and had no business being up there. And I'm pretty sure that's why they changed the policy. They were sending guys that had like 3 months, no business, never committed anything violent in their life. You know what I'm saying? Up there with lifers. And like to what you were saying, 4s and 5s are different. When I got up there, over 70% of the camp had life sentences. And these is, I don't mean no harm, but these was real criminals. And that's what that's what I tell people, like, for however people seen me. Oh, I knew the difference when I walked in that prison versus jail versus me versus these is people that live this. Like this is
that's their home.
That's their home. This has been their lifestyle growing up in the hood. Like, and this is not how I came up. The conversation, it's like, it's different now. There's no there's no communication about the outside. I don't want to jump too much into this part because I know but it's different. There was a shift. There was, yeah.
I mean, yeah, my husband says it now, you know, when guys are at 3s and 2s and they get shipped up, he's like, you're not ready to go up there. He'll say it to them all the time. You've been down here at a level 3 and a level 2, you have no idea what it's like up there.
No idea.
And it's you're right, you know, like you've got guys that have life. And when you have life, you know, my husband's been in cells with lifers and you know, that's not the greatest, like, you know, pairing people that are going home with people that have got life. It is an element of knowing that you're going to make your situation the best you can for what you can. And if you don't value or you're not scared of punishment because they can't add any more time to life,
right,
you're going to do whatever you have to do.
Yeah.
You know, no like question. if you want to stab someone, you're going to do it. You know, like, and they'll go to town over nothing, you know, and you get caught in that and you've got a driving charge, like you're catching street charges, you're getting extorted, all sorts of things.
I know a guy that came there with 8 months left, popped dirty. This was in 2004, when I was up there. He's still locked up. Because he got put in a situation where if he didn't do what he needed to do to make sure he survived, he wouldn't, and he felt it more important to be alive and above ground. And,
right.
You know, and this is a guy should have never been in that world. And I still talk to him, and I'll tell you this, and he won't mind me talking about this. When he came to Sussex, versus now, he's a completely different individual and animal. I'm talking about from the way he looks, talks, tone, and I can see it, and it destroys me because this is a buddy of mine, and I don't talk about his situation, but this is somebody, you know what I'm saying? That for that reason, and I just wonder why they changed the pop. I'm glad they did, But that was bananas. That was DOC
I think it
dropping
has
the
to do
ball.
with their compatibility policies. I'm going to put in there, I'm going to put in italics just as a note to pull up the OP under compatibility and whether I've got some really good connections at the DOC and they're really open with me through my advocacy. So I might speak to them about when that was changed and why it was changed, just for some insight into that, because I think that's a really important part of your story, you know?
03, 04, 05. I think they finally stopped it in. It either stopped in 06 or 07. Maybe in '06. It didn't it lasted long enough that it caused damage for sure. But that was not only that, and I don't want to keep. I know we're gonna get into it, but they mixed everybody up too. So it was like later on when I was at that same camp, they started to segregate people by time, lifers in this building, but not then. It's just wherever you land in there, that's where you land. You're in the terror zone. That joint was crazy.
I mean, we had a situation where he was in with a lifer and he was like, I cannot be in here. He had 2 years left. He's like, I cannot be in here. I cannot talk about going home because the minute I talk about going home, the person's whole demeanor would change. Be like, you ain't going to come in here and sit in my house and talk about going home when I'm never going home. You shut your mouth or I'll make sure you stay here as long as I am. And those were the conversations that were happening, you know? And so I think it would be really important to understand why that was changed and why it's so important to acknowledge that. I think that there is a significant, like, there's a place for prison, but there's also differences between the people that are in prison, and that there's differences in the way that these people should be classified and housed.
Yeah, no question. I tell people, I always tell people, I have to tell people, I'm not just a prisoner's rights advocate, criminal justice, I'm a victim's advocate as well. And and I'm the first one to say prisons do need to exist and monsters are real. I know monsters. I know real life monsters. People I've had to sit across from and interact with people that should not be out here, and I look them dead in their face and say the same thing. But man,
Right.
so many of us got turned into animals and monsters and savages because if we did not conform to the environment, we would not survive. And a lot of us that are coming home messed up, like we were just people that made a bad decision. We didn't want to live this way, but you know what I'm saying? And not that, but anybody, you're married to something, my wife can attest, you know what I'm saying? Not all of us are bad guys. We're not gonna lay down. You're not gonna victimize us.
I mean, I'm not in prison and I've made plenty of bad decisions.
Well, yeah, we know.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I know what
there's
you're
no,
saying.
I could have been in the same position that you were in.
Yeah,
You're one bad decision away
for
from
sure.
a change in your life, right? And so it is not, there's a clear difference between somebody that, you know, like there's guys in there now that I speak to that say, you know, the minute that I come home, I'm going to keep doing what I was doing before I came in.
Yeah,
And there's no want to change,
but
right? So, and that's the difference. It's the mindset, and identifying the mindset is what needs to happen. And it's not happening as much as it should. But you can't have, like right now, what we're seeing is overpopulated level 4s and 5s.
yeah, over. And then also, what I'm screaming is rehabilitation shouldn't start when an individual has a year left. It should start at the door.
Yeah.
You know, the environment of prison and everything. And as I'm telling, I don't want to, like, I'm not trying to paint the picture like the Commonwealth of Virginia's prisons are the most violent system. No, it's not. But yo, it's prison and people lose their lives and the environment is horrible. It's jacked up. Um, and it is what it is. But like, I want people to understand, like, back on that. That's what I really want people to understand because so many people don't get what you just said. Like, we could all ended up in prison, right? But more importantly, not everybody that is coming home from prison if you do see them in a negative light or you see them as hardened, or just know like there's a big percentage a chance that we didn't choose to be that way. But we couldn't stay in prison smiling and say, hey, what's going on, guys, how y'all doing? And it don't work like that. So I don't know, I'm glad you.
Into a situation, like you were a driver in a robbery, and I'm sure we'll get into some of the things that happened, but you were a driver in a robbery and then you were put into a level 4 as a young man.
Yeah.
And you probably did things that you'd never imagined you would have done.
Yeah.
Because you were in a level 4. Right? Like it's, yeah. Like it's.
How does a 19-year-old kid that's never been to prison before, former military, end up a gang leader? That's able to, quote unquote, have his way. That none of that. I never once saw my light. But when I went in there, when I ended up in prison, I had to find a way to be okay, to be success. I told my mother I was coming home. So a lot of the stuff I was doing in there was strategic, and the longer I was in there, the better at surviving I became, until I figured out a way to live in there. But it happens. You got people like me. I didn't have these tattoos. I had all my tattoos were hidden. You know what I'm saying? But going into the environment, next thing I know, I'm sleeved up physically. You know what I'm saying? My face becomes harder, or whatever it is. My language, my tone. And like I said, we'll get into it. But now I'm gang banging. Now I'm a gang. Like, how does this happen? You know what I'm saying? I got a roller. I'm getting a pack in. Why this doesn't happen? This is by their design, not by mine. It
couldn't have happened that way.
No. Right. And as much as people say, well, you made the choices while you were in there, again, respectfully, as a man, in any environment, not just in prison, you're either a victim, somebody walks around with their head down, or it's chin up, chest out, and you get your respect. And for a man in prison, I mean, man, most of us, we're not gonna walk with our head down.
Not when you're doing 19 years of it.
No, this is my life.
Who wants to go through 19 years of looking over your shoulder?
That's the other thing. Had I had 2 years, my approach would have been different. 5 years, I would have just been in there to survive. But the fact of the matter is, I had to figure out how to live. So, hey, prison turned me into, some people have said, a monster. And that's a fair statement. You know what I'm saying? Because not now, presently, but back then, and you know what I'm saying, being in that environment. But not the type of monsters that exist in there. Not the ones that hurt kids and, that type stuff.
Yeah. Right, so you're sitting there getting classified, and so tell me what happens next. Obviously, we know that you went to Sussex 2, but how do you get from Haynesville to Sussex 2? What does that look like?
Yeah, oh man, just one morning they just called us, put us on a bus, or the night before, told us they were packing our stuff, the little bit of property we had. Of course, guys at the jail lied to us, said we couldn't take our stuff down the road, and we left our stuff at the jail. They were running game. So, got down, or basically the following morning, just got on that prison bus. And that was the first prison bus ride. Up to then, it was just a jail van. Prison bus pulled up. It was a different, I don't know what the word is, different energy to it. Visually, I just remember just looking at this thing and just thinking about the prison movies, and shackled from wrist to waist to ankles, getting onto the bus, and felt very much a prisoner, very much captive. From there, what I found out that day, along with any time you get transferred, you get brought to Powhatan. At the time anyways, Powhatan, it was the bullpen where they do like a transfer changeover or whatnot. So the bus took us to Powhatan, and you get off the bus there, and that's where they tell you what prison you're going to. So when I got off, they were like, "Yo, Willers, you going to Sussex too?" And as everybody on these other buses were getting out of their buses and moving to Sussex too, the Sussex 2 bus, and I'm watching the other guys go to like Coffeewood bus, which is like a level 2, or Nottoway Work Center, which is level 1 or whatever. I can see the difference in just the appearance of the individuals going this way and that. And everybody that was going towards the Sussex buses just looked hardened. And it just, it is what I'm not going to say I was scared, but I was shook a little bit. I'm looking at guys, they look like people will take this statement wrong from me, but they look like they were supposed to be in prison. They was already tatted up, looking a certain way, gritting. The guys that was going to level 2, the conversation was a little bit lighter. And in hindsight, what I realized is those were the guys who were getting ready to go home versus the bus that I was getting ready to go on. Got on the bus, rode to Sussex. And shoot, once you get there, once I got there, they let us off the bus and into the institution, put us all into like this separate bullpen holding area or whatnot. And then one by one, they would bring an individual, one of us, into a separate holding cell. And there's about 6 or 7 COs. And this was a traumatizing moment, but this is where they uncuff you and they tell you to strip. And they tell you to strip, squat and cough, all these things. They're checking for your tattoo. They're literally like with rubber gloves, like holding up your arm and telling you to turn around. And probably like the most humiliating piece was and I know they probably don't do this anymore, but they had a camera, during the whole thing so they could document tattoos, but again, somebody that hasn't been to prison, I didn't have to squat and cough and all these things prior to prison. It's a bunch of men around. It's just crazy. You know what I'm saying? And I know part of it was also psychological. They're trying to give you that shock going into the door, set the tone. I understand these things now because I freaking go into prisons and learn about trainings and stuff like that. But this particular group, that's what they were doing. Once they did that part, like scan your tattoos, ask if you're affiliated with anything, blah, blah, blah. You and the rest of the guys, or me and the rest of the guys I came in with, we went to the barber. You go to the barber first. They cut your hair because in prison at the time, you could only have like an inch and a half. It was like you could only have like short hair. I can't remember the exact length. And you weren't allowed to have any facial hair. Only thing you were allowed to have was a mustache. It was the craziest thing. I remember really understanding the loss of freedom even more at that point in time. Like, not only was I incarcerated, but now they told me I couldn't grow my facial hair and I couldn't grow my hair. And that was jacked up. I still don't know to this day why they had took that. I'm glad they reversed that now. Once you go from there, we went to laundry. We got our whites or whatever, sheets, all that good stuff. And I remember that. You get your sheets, your boxer briefs, your socks, all that stuff was dingy. And they were dingy because they were previously worn by other prisoners, and they just rewash them, recirculate, reissue. So you get wear and use stuff. I remember I had to get over that feeling. But once we got our stuff from laundry, I remember they led us to this door. They're like, all right, head down to building 1. And the door opens onto the boulevard for the first time. And walking onto the prison boulevard, it was rec time. And all the rec yards were full up. And immediately guys started swarming the gates as we were walking down the boulevard to the building. And they were just screaming, where you from, blood? Da, 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 da. Oh, yeah, we finna holler at. They was just like, some dudes was seeing people they knew. Some of us were looking for people we knew. Some people were looking to see who they could victimize. who they might be able to shake up. You know, they sizing you up immediately when you're walking into prison. And this is my first time, you know. So it was just, I don't know, it was like hundreds of people out there. And then when I finally got into the building, oh, I got to mention this part. When I remember walking on the boulevard, I was seeing like these stains on the boulevard, and I thought they were rust stains. And found out, you know, a few days later, once I was in, you know, kind of getting acclimated, that they were blood stains from something that had happened earlier that week on the boulevard. But yeah, so get your laundry, walk down the boulevard, get harassed by everybody as they're watching you. You walk into the building. I walked into the building, went up to my dorm, 1D, met the CO at the door, and he just told me, he was like, yo, you're in cell 10. And that was it. I was waiting for him, like, walk with me, tell me something else. He was like, you're in cell 10. We're getting ready to go on. It's about to be count time. You can holler at your cell partner. I was like, what? You know, I'm expecting a more formal introduction. Not like I want him to introduce me to the pod, but I'm thinking like he's gonna tell me like, this is that, this is this, but just nothing. This is your cell. That's it. And that was my first time being exposed to what most correctional officers would be in prison. Not all. You got some good ones, for sure. People that do try to help and are there just to do their job. But this would be an individual we'd find out later on didn't care at all anyways. But I remember walking to my cell and the door opened up. And I'm kind of, you know, the cells are on this side of me. I'm holding my bag and I'm looking this way into the pod. Guys are playing cards. And I just remember like, this is prison. Like, this is where I'm about to live. Like, it smelled different than the jail. It was still concrete and steel, but the way it was set up, the showers, like everything, you know, it was just a different situation. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. I'm trying to block this dude. Let me see this dude. Oh, well. Anyway, but it was just a different situation. The air felt different. The energy felt different. I don't know. That was it. That's all I can. That's what I mean. I was in shock. I was trying to process something. Just environment, this reality. This is my life, you know. And I'm looking at guys, and like I said, I can clearly tell, like, this is where they've been for a while. When I look into my cell door, or look into my cell, because the door opens up, to see if my cell partner's in there, I look in there, and it looks like a dang mini apartment. And I had never seen a cell look like this, but I could obviously tell whoever lived in here probably lived in here for a while. Like, the floors were waxed. It was just a weird, like, not weird, but it was just like extremely clean, which was good. But if you've never lived in a cell, that's good. But if you have, like, you'll see the guys that like interior decorate their cells and paint and do things, you know, which is good. But to me, again, it's weird because this is prison. Like, I'm thinking, I'm expecting suffer, and I walk in here and it's like, dude had made this like a little home. I sat my bag down and my new cell partner came right over, and he was just like, yo, what's going on, Young Blood? My name's O. You know, I'm from Richmond, da-da-da. You good? That's what he said. He said, he said, it's about to be locked down. He said, I'm about to tell you, you know what I'm saying, what's up? He said, this your first, he said, this your first stop, which he must thought could just see it on me, you know, which now I know because I walked in, you know, with just my laundry bag, you know, and obviously from me living there long enough, I could begin to point out new guys that were coming into the system too. But, and I just told him, yeah. He was like, don't trip, you good. And we went in the cell, and it was lockdown time. And I remember the old heads telling me down, like, at jail, they were like, yo, be careful of your first cell partner, who you talk to. They were talking about how dudes be trying to, like, take advantage of, you know, other men physically and stuff like that up there. So all this stuff started instantly. Just all these thoughts and anxieties were instantly in my head, which was good because I needed to be on point in there. But the first lockdown or the first count time, man, he really started just laying down, what I needed to know. I was fortunate enough, I got put in a cell with an old head. He had already been down like over 20 years, was serving a life sentence with chance of parole, but he was one of them old heads that kind of like, I don't want to say accepted it, but he was there. He immediately, during that lockdown, I remember and this wasn't the smart thing to do, but he pulled out some smoke or whatever, and he was like, "You smoke?" Because at the time there was still tobacco in the system. I was like, "Yeah, heck yeah," because he had a joint or whatever, and shouldn't have, but I just felt like this gonna be my cell partner. It'll probably be straight. We had been talking. I just took the chance, and I was so stressed out. My anxiety was so high. I just wanted to do anything. But that wasn't smart because when I smoked that first joint in there, now I'm paranoid on top of that. And I'm looking out in the cell, and as he's telling me, "Yeah, we're getting ready to go to chow. You just walk with me." And he's like, "Here you go." And he reaches up underneath the lip of the toilet, and he pulls out a piece of steel that was wrapped with a piece of black electric tape. He made it look as nice as possible. And he was like, "Here you go." He's like, "You're going to need this." So my first hour on Sussex, yeah, straight from getting my head shaved to smoking a J to being held or handed a piece of steel and being told I was gonna need this, and this is how I need to walk with it. Before the doors popped, he just kind of told me what was going on in the pod. There was some beef between two of the cities already that was going on in there. He was telling me how like the gang called was starting to pop up in there in VA because it wasn't really prevalent in Virginia system at all till about 2003, 2004. You started to see some gang members in the system. He was just telling me the politics. He was telling me how the phones ran because there was a phone system they had in place and all of that. And then door opened and it was time for chow. I remember all of this happening, and on top of that, the very first time I'm going to chow, we're kind of like in the back of the line. He told me, he was like, "Man, if you can," he's like, "always let everybody walk in front of you, especially while you're new here, you don't know anybody." He said, "Just stay on point that way, get to the back of the line, boom, boom." So we chilling, we slow rolling, and as we're coming down the stairs, because our pod is upstairs, everybody starts kind of like slowing up, almost like a traffic jam in the highway. And you can't really see what's going on in front of you. And I can see guys are stepping over something in the stairwell. And as I get closer, the old head's like, "Come on, man," just like that. And I kind of look down because I'm getting closer to whatever everybody's stepping over. And I get there, and it's a human being. It's somebody that had got essayed, and not only that, his jaw, I could visibly see his jaw was twisted. And everybody just walked over him. He's like, "Just keep looking forward. We ain't got nothing to do with that." And then it was go to chow. Like that was it. I'm blending in with guys. Now guys are talking about it, but everybody acting like they don't know what it is. We're on the boulevard. And once we got onto the boulevard, a CO that was outside comes behind us, our pod, with a dog. Because the CO was in front of us, whatever. And I remember as we're on our way to the chow hall now, this is my first time experiencing having dogs behind us. I look up on top of stepping over a man who was just badly injured, if not worse. I don't know what's going on at the time. I'm watching COs on a catwalk above the chow hall where you eat with firearms that can shoot rubber pellets, if not worse. And then I go into the chow hall for the first time with my pod, and there's somebody standing in there in like a little tower with a weapon that can shoot off rubber pellets. and you got to eat your food like that with COs pacing between you and somebody pointing a weapon at you, or at least the room scanning, anyways. And it's just an extreme amount of stress to try to, like, I don't know, process in the first couple hours in prison. And the thought immediately to that was, I've got to survive in this. Like, I have to survive in this for for 17, 18, 19 years. 85% of 19 was 16 years and 4 months or something like that. So in my thought was like, I have to survive this. I said, this is in my mind, this is the first couple hours. Like, this is crazy. The chow hall was the chow hall was just it was an experience. On top of all that, guys would be clicked up. Everybody mean mugging. Food's horrible. It's just a cold environment, and we were in there probably for about 4 or 5 minutes before they called the code for what had happened in the stairwell. They started rushing us, like, yo, you gotta eat your food, get the heck up out of here. Da 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 da. Then they locked us in the chow hall for ones that didn't finish fast enough, and then that was essentially my first day. We was stuck in the chow hall for a few hours before being able to go back to the pod, and then once we were back to the pod, we was put on lockdown, and that was the end of the first day. My first 24 hours in prison. A great introduction at that, might I add. Jesus. Good morning, y'all. I feel like we just did like 4 chapters. Or 2 chapters. I know you did some. Been talking.
I feel like that one just rolls. So you've got initial adjustment, finding your bearing, people you're around, like we've kind of been through that on your first day. You've also got on this chapter Brother Anthony.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you want to get into that now, or?
We can.
Okay.
It's an important part of the story for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, like prison.
See, people are telling you to keep going.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. They're saying keep going. I'm right. I mean, I know in Australia it's a little bit later than it is over here. So
it is a little bit later over here. So we will keep going. We will keep going.
I will say I'm on your schedule. So yeah, so I guess is reacclimating, or not reacclimating, but acclimating to prison life. One of the things that you have to do, if you're smart, is get a job. You want to get a job. I remember kind of like stressing out at first. I didn't have any property, didn't have any, having a TV was a big thing in prison. I just wanted to get enough money so I can get a 5-inch black and white TV. They had the 5-inch Magnavox color ones too, which was like the big deal. But I didn't have any, I had my mom, but my mom's trying to pay bills out here, and I didn't have any support. So I was going to have to get a job, and grind, hustle, save, all that. So the old head told me, he was like, man, the best place for you to get a job is the kitchen. He's like, you can make your paycheck there. He said, you can steal out of there and hustle, make some extra money, and you can eat, which saves you on commissary. I was like, shoot, sounds like a plan to me. Went to the counselor, put in for the kitchen, got into the kitchen, and got put straight into the dish room. Like, when you go to prison, if you sign up to work in the kitchen, you're 9 times out of 10 going to go to the dish room, unless you got a reputation as a cook or something. And dish room's vicious, man. But it's like, it's like a prison experience, or prison rite of passage, I think, for a lot of us. But in there, I ended up kind of clicking up with a buddy in there named Tone, or Brother Anthony, good brother. And he was just somebody, that showed up to work every day like I did. Like that's how we did our time. We'd go to work, we was busting those dishes out, we'd eat together, hustle together, all that. Eventually one day he came to me, he was like, bro, he's like, I never told you because I never wanted to talk about our time, but I'm getting ready to go home. I got to go across the yard. I'm finishing up my 10 years. And I was like, yo, that's what's up. I said, I ain't even tripping. I said, that's, heck yeah. And like the last few days, we was just chilling, joking, laughing, chilling. And before he had moved to the yard or moved across the yard to the reentry building, I remember that last day, we was just rapping like Dr. Dre, the Chronic songs. And oh no, we was just celebrating. He was getting ready to go home. You know what I'm saying? That was my people. So he ended up being moved to the reentry building or their version of it on Sussex at the time. And it was a good thing. He was getting ready to go home. And I remember sending him like a kite across the yard, was just like a message with my number, my state number and all that. Just like, yo, bro, when you go home, make sure you hit me up, da, 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 all that good stuff. And then I would say probably everything was going good. New guy got put in the dish room. And about maybe like 3 days after Song got moved across the yard, we were out there on the rec yard, chilling, trying to enjoy the day. When I say we, I just mean like me, some of my partners, all that, not him. At the prison we were on, each pod is separated into a separate rec yard, if that makes sense. So like the basketball is caged, or basketball court is caged in. Rec yard 2, which is a small yard, is caged in the big yard. So you would only rec with your pod at the time. So my pod was on the big yard. Brother Anthony's yard or pod was on the small yard, which is basically we could talk to them fence to fence. It's just across the boulevard, if that makes sense. Brother Anthony's on the gate. He's hollering at everybody. He's like, yo, everybody's shouting him out, which in hindsight, this was a dumb move. It was a Saturday.
I feel like I'm going to cry. I can just feel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, this is making me emotional already, and I don't even.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I feel you. Trust me. I've told it enough now where I don't freaking, you know what I'm saying? But, so he was just on the fence, man. And he was everybody's just, because he had just moved out of our dorm, or from our building, and everybody, oh, you going home, brother? And as an old timer now, as a former convict, ex-convict or whatever, I can tell you he shouldn't have been on the yard. He was, this was Saturday, and he was going home Monday, 2 days later. He was on the gate, and then, he was like, man, I'm about to go, walk the yard or whatever with some of my partners. Boom, boom. I'll be back to holler at y'all. We were like, bet, we're going to go finish working out. We went back to the pull-up bar or whatever. We were working out. He was walking around with some of his partners, quote unquote. And then I remember, if you ever been on a prison yard, you don't have to hear something going on. You can feel the shift, and it'll happen. Either you'll feel it. I'm one that feels energy. People be like, man, you tripping, you're weird. No, I feel energy, very much so when I walk into a room. But more important that even if I didn't, there's a certain quiet that takes place when shit hits the yard or the pod. And it got quieter, and everybody's eyes shifted. And you follow the eyes. And Brother Anthony was kind of like in the back of the small yard 2, and he was being physically assaulted. He had got jumped by some guys. And I got to mention this, they weren't supposed to be on the yard. And this is all documented, it's public record. The CO, one of the crooked COs up there, let these guys onto the yard to physically assault my friend. And I don't know, maybe he didn't know they were going to, I don't know, but how could you not? And he let these guys on the yard. They beat my friend. And then we're so far, we're not up on it, and we're in a separate yard. But I remember this. at this point in time, by the time we glance, we can see him walking, but following the same guys that had assaulted him. And I remember me and a couple of my partners, we're screaming, like, yo, somebody grab bro. Somebody like grab bro, grab bro. Because we can, at this point, we're used to being in environments where dudes is fighting, combative, whatever. And we've seen people, if you ever been in that, you've seen people that got knocked out, but they're still on their feet. You know what I'm saying? They're dazed, they're confused. They just got rocked. He got lumped up. But what was going on is what we found out later on was when he was following them, he was asking them, like, why'd you jump me? Why'd you jump me? He wasn't saying, like, I was going to attack you. He was saying, why I jumped me. One of the dudes that the main one that had physically assaulted him kept telling him, yo, stop following me, stop following me. And again, this is all what we're catching after the fact. But we can sort of see it through the people. As Brother Anthony kept following him, dude said, stop following me. Must have got fed up. He turned around. He hit him with a piece of steel twice. And he hit him just right. Brother Anthony kind of staggered. By this time, we could see him staggering towards the fence. And he kind of took a knee. And he had like his hand like hanging on to the fence. At this time, we don't care. Like I know me and my brothers, we don't care about no prison code or none of that. Like we were screaming for the COs. But what was so crazy was the CO that was supposed to be observing the yard is the one that let them on. So of course he wasn't observing. All the other COs, they were positioned in different parts of the yard. There's so many people out there, you can't really see what's going on unless somebody calls the code. The only thing that caused somebody to get there faster was a CO had came out the building to call him for visitation. And they were calling Brother Anthony, Brother Tone for visitation. And what happened, his family had came up there for like one last surprise visit or whatever. They couldn't find him. They knew he wasn't in the dorm. They were looking on the yard and we're screaming, yo, he's down here. And the CO, instead of going on to the yard to run down there, he comes down the boulevard and he goes to Brother Anthony, he taps the fence to see if he's okay, and Brother Anthony just falls over. And then all hell broke loose. They called the code. COs put him on a gurney, but I've seen at least 5 people take their last breath in my journey, and I can tell you that he was gone by then, and they tried to act like he wasn't. And they canceled visits. So his family was in the visitation room. And this part, I don't know how accurate it is, but the next part that I'll explain. So when his family came, they canceled visits, but they didn't give his family the reason. They shut visitations down on the whole compound, locked the compound down. No verbal reason was given. And I was told that his family on Monday was told. They weren't told Saturday. They weren't told Sunday. They came up to the prison where they had chaplains, or whatever, that were waiting to have communication with them. The worst part of this situation was that, because people ask, like, what was it about? And like I said, 1, he shouldn't have been on the yard. It's a short timer. But 2, all of this was over a 5-inch TV. Like every single bit of it, all the drama that transpired was over a 5-inch TV. And then people will say, it was the principal. Man, we got to do better. He had promised the individual his TV, which happens in prison. You're getting ready to go home. Hey, man, you can have my stuff. Some people said he was in debt. I don't know. I didn't know him to have a reason to be in debt, but I don't know. Instead of him giving the gentleman his TV that he had promised it to, his cousin had came up to the prison a few days earlier. And he decided to give his TV and his property to his cousin instead. And that sent the other guy over the edge. I guess the reasoning was he had already sold his TV in anticipation. He was getting the 5-inch Magnavox. And he felt disrespected, felt like Tone had bucked on him, and he wanted to straighten it. And maybe he didn't have the intention, nor did they, to take his life, but it happened.
And the individual that did it, he only got 12 years on top of his sentence. He's been home. And I don't know, man. I hope he's changed too. But that was like, that was the first. I had seen people get assaulted before then. Brother Anthony not only was a friend, but he was the first loss of life in the system that I had seen or was around or any of that. And there were a lot of thoughts because I was just thinking, I was like, my brother had 2 days left before he went home. And then I had thoughts just like a few of us, now we were wanting to, potentially wage war or, but by the time they had, let us off lock or whatever, they had got the guys. Everybody had told, and even down to the CO, everybody got locked. But yeah, tough situation for sure. Easier to tell the story now, but yeah, still angry to this day, I guess. I don't know about angry, upset, I don't know, but something. Somebody just said the prison my man is at, one of the COs was charged with assault. Yeah, it happens.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, D. Yeah. Yeah, none of his homeboys, man, none of them people he was supposed to be cool with, they didn't step in, they didn't stop it, they didn't scream. I feel like any of them could have just like diffused the situation with a word or two. But the guys that were supposed to be his homeboys were scared. And that was it. They were scared. I don't know. If he was on the, if we were on the yard, we wouldn't have been scared. I know that. We were different at that time already. But his homeboys are supposed to, I don't know. I don't want to use the word coward or whatever. They were scared. We had issues with them too after that happened.
I think that's me done for today.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm good right there. Yep. Appreciate it.
Man.
Yeah. And he's not the only we'll talk about it more. It's, man, a lot of people, I think most of the people that I've seen lost their life in prison or getting ready to go home. Very seldom have I seen somebody with like a life sentence or long-term incarceration lose their life in there. I would have to say, if not 100%, like 90-some% loss of life, short timers, which is weird. People that are getting ready to go home. But then again, it's not. Prison doesn't discriminate. Man, just because it's not over till it's over. So, yeah.
Do you think, though, that, I know, we were talking about compatibility and stuff like that. At some point, people's priorities and value on life change, right? And so this person, his values laid in that the prerogative of someone's word, even though this person was going home, if the person that did it had a longer period of time, their opinion of this person going home would be like, well, fuck you.
Yeah.
It's your environment, right?
Yeah, it's got to be. Because it just, I was in a situation later on where an individual owed me, a few dollars and was getting ready to go home, and I had a decision to make. It was either, you know, get my point across or let him live. Not let him live like I was gonna, but not do anything to him. And I just let the brother go home. Like at the end of the day, as much as it is about survival and respect and all that in there, at some point you can't lose grasp of your humanity. Like you have to hang on. And I think that's what happens when we go to prison. Some of us we lose humanity, or the aspect of humanity and compassion, and these things are conditioned out of us. So that's why I say even the individuals that did that, my hope is that they are better men now. That's my hope, because I gain nothing by hoping that there's still, these horrible individuals or whatever. My hope is that they learned in that environment that what they did was senseless, man. You know what I'm saying? Like it made no sense. Like a 5-inch color TV, like a magnet, like.
Do you think that, and this is, I guess, something that I've heard talked about a lot when we talk about the value on crime. Do you think someone that takes a life is redeemable?
I think somebody that does that takes a life, in most cases, is redeemable. I always say, like, I do believe rehabilitation should be offered to everyone. I do not believe everyone should get a second chance at freedom. There are people that I know that I've had this. I had a cell partner briefly for less than a day, who took the life of a 14-year-old and 11-year-old girl. And there's no way in hell I could, and the way of, there's no good way to do something, but even in the way, that's evil. That when I heard about it, there's individuals in there that I know, that there's one individual that took the lives of quite a few, and they said, yo, this is probably a known serial, but they only got him for this number, So I don't know. The definition of redeemable, I think, is two parts. Everybody can be rehabilitated in a way of they can get an understanding of what they've done, the depths of it, in hopes that they can learn to think differently. But redeemable in the sense like they should be put back in society, I don't know, because I don't feel like all of us are capable of making decisions that won't hurt other people. I feel like some of us are just wired that way, from my experience. I don't know. I feel like I've been around people that did things to children in there that they'll tell you, like, I'm not changing. As soon as I go home, I'm gonna, and you're like, I'm gonna beat you up. Like, I'm just being honest. Like that, you had individuals like that, you know what I'm saying? So I can't say that those are redeemable, because they don't want to be redeemed. Some people are so absorbed by the dark, like they're just there. I was in there with an individual that put his 9-month-old. You know what I'm saying? Like literally, you hear the stories and you think it's like it's a game, and then you're in there with an individual that put their 9-month-old in a microwave. Like me talk like it's that John got me shaking right now. Anybody that's watching this, like, a lot of us in prison, again, I want to say this. A lot of us we're good guys. We're not nice guys. And there's a certain justice that does go on in there. So if you see me speaking passionate about things, you got to understand, I've been in environments where somebody that's physically assaulted a 4-year-old is watching little girls on TV and making announcements about it like it's funny. And you can't do that around stand-up guys. And they're doing that because they want to crash out. But yeah, everybody's not redeemable. Not to me.
I think, especially, I guess, I've been watching, I don't know if you watched it, but Gypsy Rose's reality show that she has now, and I don't know if you've kind of followed that case, but I think everyone in the world knows who Gypsy Rose is, and the fact that she took her mother's life, and she kind of sits there and goes, I don't want to be known as the person that unalived her mother. And there's been a lot of talk around, how do you drop that though? You know, like, how can you not be known for taking a life? How do you be proud of someone again that took a life?
It's situational, because there are some people that have, like, I know somebody that's in a similar situation, not like we're friends, but I have have the session or counsel with or whatever. But I know an individual that unalived their father, but their father was SAing them, like, through her childhood, you know, and he tried to do it one more time, and, you know, she stood up, and I think, if we're being real and absolutely transparent, sometimes loss of life does occur with just cause. You know, I hate to say it like that. You don't want anybody to endure that or experience. Everybody should be able to live to 100 peacefully in harmony. But when you look at it, there are people. I watched some footage yesterday of an officer in Chicago. You can tell he was shaken up. He didn't want to take the individual's life that he did, but it was, the guy drew a firearm, and that young man, look, whether I agree with law enforcement or not, and that man was shaken up. You can tell he didn't want to do that. You know, so sometimes these things occur, and the individual does not want to do that, and they shouldn't be labeled as such. But there is the accountability piece, is understanding that you were part of that moment, and that you're going to have to work hard and create ways. You know, I could have came home and continued to be listed as, you know, a menace to society had I fed into that. You know, any of us can continue to be looked at as the label that we were given. We just got to make the decision to do the work, you know. But that's hard, man. But not everybody that's done that woke up. Some people wake up and they're like, yo, I'm going to take somebody's life today. You know, somebody is pre-planning something very bad right now, versus somebody that they're at the bar one night, you know, and they get to arguing, or somebody, you know, bumps into your old lady, or, you know, it's different, because I've been around both. You know.
I agree. Well, today was emotional. So that was 3,338 words today.
That's a lot of words.
A lot of words. Usually we sit at about 1,000.
Oh yeah.
So that was a lot of words today.
That's what's up. Let me know whenever you want to. Just whenever. I know we always try to get together on Mondays, but if you ever want to get a session in or whatever, just let me know. I'm on your calendar. I'm
Do
cool.
you have a picture of Brother Anthony that we can insert?
No, I'll talk about that. I had the COs destroyed. I don't have a lot of pictures of myself from in the system now. The COs destroyed so much of my paperwork and pictures. And
do you know his surname?
Huh?
His government. Do you know his government last name?
Yeah, I can pull it. Yeah, I got it. But I know I'm gonna have to
find a picture of him online.
Yeah, but I'm gonna get with his family first to make sure. You know what I'm saying? Which I don't feel like they should have an issue, because I'm using it for an educational piece, and people need to know. You know.
I think it's respectful. Yeah, but I think also
it needs to be known.
It's difficult for somebody that hasn't been through what you've been through to visualize things. It's almost like I read a lot, right? And I find it really difficult to read things like fantasy, right? And the reason I find it difficult to read things like fantasy is because when I read the words on a piece of paper, my brain can't conceptualize what I'm reading. So yes,
Right.
I'm reading, and yes, it's emotional and so on and so forth. But I think when you accompany it with pictures, even if it's black and white little still shots,
Excuse
I
me.
think it just adds an element to that story that he's not just like he was a person with a family,
Yeah.
you know, and this is what he looked like. And he was smiling, and you know, like, and there was people that loved him. He's not just part of your story.
Yeah.
Like, he was a person, a human being,
I'm gonna reach
you
out.
know, and I think people deserve that. So
Yeah. I think. Yeah, I mean, yeah. And I will say that anything that I have spoke on, touched on, like, I always try to make sure, you know, I can, because I want to be respectful and I do approach it. But I think that anything, even what you mentioned with like stuff from Motion Discovery or whatever, like anything visual, yeah, to add for sure, just so people can connect.
yeah,
But
yeah,
no,
definitely.
I'm
Alrighty, well,
okay.
we will catch up. Maybe do another one during the week, and
Okay. Just
yeah,
let me
so
know.
that one is done.
All right. Thank you a
Just
million.
can you just, like, you know, if there's another chapter with something like that coming up, can you pre-warn me? Thanks.
Well, I don't. You. Oh well. I mean, now we're. But this is the thing. So I'm warning you now. Now we're into the shit. Now we're into. Now we're into the shit. And then we got to figure out, which I think we already discussed, but my ADHD and my memory, and I'm burnt out. Are we going to the fine? Like, does the book end when I get, like, walk out the gates, or?
No, we're going all the way to therapy,
Okay, bet.
social media, activism, the school,
Okay.
COVID,
Yeah.
and even now, you know, like Life Unit, Ian Bick, podcasting.
Yeah. So we're in the shit now. So just be ready for each session. But if
Thank you.
these types of sessions though, and you're welcome, but we can knock the book out pretty fast, like off, because.
Oh, look, that went fast, but yeah, I'm human too. I'm not just.
Are you?
Yeah, I think you know, whilst I'm writing it, it's emotional. So
Right.
I hope that everyone watching got something from today's session, and
Yeah.
we're able to connect, which is really important.
Yeah, there's been people locked in everywhere this whole time. People are saying so cannot wait for the book to come out, bestseller for sure. People are commenting. We'll see, man. We're gonna push it. We're gonna definitely push this out here. That's what we're working on.
I have a call coming through, so I will talk to you later. Goodbye, everybody.
Talk to
See
you
next
later.
time.
Peace.